Okay, good afternoon, students. So this is about the growth models which we were talking. Until now, we have been discussing about the two growth models. The one was exponential growth model, and another one was logistic growth. So, what is logistic growth now? So, about this, let us know more about it. Okay. So, logistic growth is when there is no unlimited resources. So what happens basically is the resources do not remain unlimited for a longer time. Okay, this I have already explained to you also about the logistic growth. So what happens is the resources do not remain unlimited for a longer time, and at one point of time it gets exhausted or gets or it rapidly decreases. Okay, it rapidly decreases. So at that time, what happens is that it leads to the competition for resources. Okay, what happens? It leads to the competition for resources. Okay, so if the one plant which I was giving example, if one plant is having taking up all the resources like water, nutrients, soil, everything from the nature. The other plant who also needs the same thing will, what will happen is there will be a competition between two of them because the resources is not unlimited. So what will happen? It will lead to competition of resources. Okay, the one plant which is growing, okay, the one plant which is growing here, okay, the one plant which is growing here, and the same plant which will be growing nearby it, okay, the same plant which will be growing nearby it. So what will happen is there will be a competition between both this plant if the resources are not unlimited, like for the water, then for the nutrients. Okay, then for the nutrients and other many such resources, the plants will have competition. So, who will survive? Only those will survive who are fittest individuals survive when they reproduce. Yes, the one who can adapt these conditions. Less resources, conditions, only those can survive and reproduce. Okay, what will happen is those individual which can fit to this less resources thing and can survive, only those individual can survive and grow. Okay, only those individual can survive and grow. Now, here what happens is after the survival of the fittest, that is those individuals who can survive, reproduce here. Okay, only who can adapt the conditions and they can grow or reproduce. Now, what happens over here? Another concept comes in the picture, and that is carrying capacity. So, students, let us know what is carrying capacity is. Carrying capacity, which is denoted by K, here maximum population density a habitat's resources can support. So, what happens is maximum population density a habitat resource can support, like for the forest, aquatic water, or any other terrestrial or any other terrestrial such habitats of animals, organisms. Okay, only maximum population density habitats resources can support. Okay, this is carrying capacity. Only that maximum, okay, to this extent or to this limit only, the population density or the population size can be supported. Okay, that is nothing but called as carrying capacity. Okay, density or habitat resources, like forest, water, terrestrial, like the food, the nutrients, okay, the food, nutrients, and other such resources which the animals take up from the habitat. Okay, the animals take up from the habitat. If only those resources, how much resources are there, that much population only it can support, and that is known as carrying capacity. Okay, and it is known as carrying capacity. So, what happens? Maximum population density a habitat resource can support, that is only that how much population, how much of carrying capacity, how much of resources is there, that much only the population can be supported by that many resources. Okay. Now what happens here, when a population has limited resources, it shows lag phase followed by a phase of acceleration and declaration, and finally a symptom. Population density reaches the carrying capacity, means that much of resources is there, that much only population can be carried. Okay, that much of resources is there, that much only population can be carried. The plot of n in relation to time t results in sigmoid curve. So what happens here is a curve, here it is obtained and it is a S-shaped sigmoid curve. Okay. Now, here you have come across such words such as lag phase, yes or no? Phase of acceleration, declaration, and the asymptote. Okay. Now, what are all this? So, what happens when a population has limited resource, means less of resources are there, it shows less lag phase. This is the initial phase. Lag phase is nothing but the initial phase. What happens here? Here the slow growth is taking place. Okay, the slow growth is taking place. Here the slow growth is taking place. Later what happens? Followed by a phase of acceleration. Later rate of acceleration is nothing but also called as log phase. So what happens here? Little bit addition or the population little bit increases. Okay, later what happens, it goes on to little bit decrease. Okay, once the resources are getting depleted, what will happen is it will become a little bit stationary, and finally it will reach to the carrying capacity. Finally it will reach to the phase where it is finally it will reach to the phase where this resources can only the resources can only what is that, can only limit the growth or the population. Okay, can limit the growth and the population, and the plot is in relation to time t. Okay, and relation to the time t, that is population by time t, and it results in a S curve or a sigmoid curve. Okay, see here, population size, that is n, and the time t here. Okay, so you will get one curve, and here it is carrying capacity. It has reached the carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is nothing but at a point where all the resources are that much resources only can hold or what I should say, limit the that much of population only, a number or size of population. Okay, so world's per logistic growth. So how it is, what is the equation here? The equation is dn by dt. You all are aware what is dn by dt, yes or no? So what it is, dn by dt, you all must all are aware about this. So dn by dt is equals to rn k minus n by k. Okay. So here, so here when we were learning, so here when we were learning this dn by dt, yes or no? So dn by dt, you have to find the population size at the time t. Okay, increase or decrease of the population size at the time t. Okay, increase or decreases the population size at the time t. So dn by dt is equals to rn by that is k minus n divided by k. Okay, so the equation is dn by dt is equals to what is the, which equation is it? It's world's per logistic growth. Okay, that is dn by dt is equals to rn, where r is the intrinsic rate of natural increase. Okay, where r is the intrinsic rate of natural increase, and then is the population density at a time t. Okay, R is intrinsic rate of natural increase. This I also said this rate of birth minus death. Okay, rate of birth minus death, where n is the population density at time t, where n is the population density at time t. Okay, where n is the population density at time t. So K is the carrying capacity. What is carrying capacity? It is the capacity where a habitat can limit The population, okay, can limit the population. How much of resources are remaining? Okay, to the to the number of the resources. Okay, number of the or amount of the resources. So this is denoted by K. Okay, so here dn by dt is the population density at the time, anytime t, population density, anytime t. R is the intrinsic rate of natural increase, N is the population, N is the population size, okay, K is the carrying capacity. Okay, also someone had asked me in the last class why logistic growth curve, okay, why logistic growth curve is more realistic than the exponential growth curve. So why it is, as resources of the most organism are finite, logistic growth is more realistic because at one point of time, okay, at one point of time, the resources are going to get depleted. Okay, the resources are going to get depleted. So it becomes more realistic. Okay, it becomes, this growth curve becomes more realistic because the most organism are more resources for the most organism will become finite. That it is going to get depleted at one point of time. Okay, it's going to get depleted at one point of time. So a logistic growth curve is more realistic. Okay, because the resources will not remain, the resources will not remain unlimited for a longer period of time. It is going to get depleted at one point of time because it is finite. Okay, so logistic growth curve is more realistic. Remember this. Why logistic growth curve is more realistic? It is more realistic because resources for most organisms are finite, that is limited. Okay, it's going to limit at one point of time. That is, it we're going to reach the carrying capacity. So what? So logistic growth is more realistic. Okay. So now coming to the next one. So about the population interactions. So you all know that there is a ecological interaction between the environment and the organisms. Yes or no? There is a ecological interaction between the this organism and the environment. The same wise, there is an interaction between, okay, there is an interaction between interaction there is an interaction between organism and organisms. Okay, organisms and organisms. How both are beneficial to each other, whether one is beneficial to each other, whether both are not beneficial to each other, how the interaction is between them, how the interaction between the population of the organism, okay, between the population of the organisms is we will study under this population interactions. You all are aware what is interaction. Interaction is nothing but uh, the bond or a kind of what I should say, the relationship. Okay, the relationship between one organism and the other organism. Okay, they both interact, like how we interact with the environment, the same way. Okay, the same way the organism interaction is there. Okay, so this is comes under the population interactions. Minimum requirement of species, one more species to feed on. Okay, so what happens here? Minimum requirement of species, one or more species to feed on. So what happens when the organism are interacted, how they are mutually, okay, how they are mutually bonded with each other, whether they help each other to feed, how they are mutually benefited to each other or mutually not benefited to each other. Okay, this comes under this population interaction between the species. Okay, in that there are two types, that is one is interspecific interactions and another one is intraspecific interactions. So what it is? So always remember inter and intra. Why I'm saying you this is interspecific means with different. Okay, always remember inter means different and intra means same. Okay, inter means different and intra means same. Interspecific interaction, interaction of population of two different species. They both are different species and there is an interaction. Okay, when I'm saying you organisms and organism, there is a different species. This is one species and this is another species. Okay, one and two. This is one species, this is another species. Whereas intraspecific interaction, this is between the same species. Both the species are same in intraspecific. So always remember when it is all, when the word comes inter, then it is different. Okay, then it is different. And when it is intra, then it is same. Okay, so always remember this. So whenever the definition is asked for you, what is interspecific interactions? Then you just have to remember, okay, inter means different. Okay, inter means different. Interactions of population of two different species. This one species is different, this one species is different. Whereas in intraspecific interaction, both are same. Both are same species. So if it is asked, what is the intraspecific interaction? The interaction of population of the same species. The interaction of the population of the same species. Okay, so this is between the, this is what population interaction is. In that, in population interaction, there is two types. That is interspecific interaction and intraspecific interaction. Okay, two types, interspecific interaction and intraspecific interaction. So again, there are types of interaction between the interspecific and intraspecific. There are name of, these are the different names of interaction. That is communalism, amenalism, predation, parasitism, mutualism, and competition. Okay, we will learn more about this. How they are, the species are interrelated to each other. Okay, how they are going benefiting each other. How or whether they are not going to benefit each other. So these are the different types of interactions we'll study. Okay, so again, by coming back to this, today we learned about the logistic growth. Okay, logistic growth is because there is no unlimited resources. That time we get this model or this growth model, that is logistic growth model. Okay, we learned about the learned about how the plants or animals or any other organism should adapt, reproduce, and then survive into the unlimited resources. Okay, in the limited resources. About the carrying capacity, maximum population density our habitat resources can support. Okay, if this is habitat, so how much resources is present here, that much only it can support. Okay, so when a population has limited resources, it shows lag phase, then for phase of acceleration, declaration, asymptote, that is the population resource reaches the carrying capacity. Okay, the curve which we get is sigmoid curve, and this is Pearl's Pearl logistic growth equation. If it is asked for you, give me, or if I ask you the question, give me the world's per logistic growth equation, then you have to remember dn by dt, that is population density at any time, rn, that is intrinsic rate of natural increase, n is the population size, k minus n, that is capacity minus population size. Okay, so this is the equation. And why it is logistic growth is more realistic, because at one point of time the resources are going to get finite or limited, so that because of which logistic growth curve is more realistic. Now coming to the population interactions. Population interactions are of two types: interspecific interaction, intraspecific interaction. So always remember, inter means different, intra means same. Okay, the interaction of population of two different species means it is two different species means interspecific, and if it is same species means intraspecific. Okay, so this is about the today's class. If there is any doubt regarding this topic, you can ask me personally or in the next class whenever we are going to meet. Okay, so until then, please note down the points, go through the points. If there are any doubts, do ask me. Okay, yes, thank you so much, students.